All right. Welcome everybody back to Black Ribbon Warrior, where we are discussing how melanoma cancer has affected our lives, not only as a patient, but as the family. I am joined by my lovely wife,
Hello.
and she has been talking a lot about everything from her perspective because with the brain surgery, I was a walking zombie. And my main goals was to get out of bed and don't pee your pants. And she dealt with majority of everything, so she has quite a laundry list of things to get into. So
Yeah.
last,
And as we've always talked, that our experiences in this were completely different. You were going through it, and I was watching you go through it. But on the other side, I was also handling all the things. I almost became like a single mom again because you weren't able to handle these things.
mm-hmm,
And, you and we've talked a lot about the emotions of this all. And, I've said to you many, many times, not in a morbid way, not in a resentful way, but kind of in a complete realty kind of way that I know you're dealing with it like this, but I have to look at it if something happens to you in all of this, if this doesn't go our way, you won't know how hard this is for me to pick back up and keep moving
mm-hmm.
because I'm going to be left with all of it to deal with.
And
So it's kind of that pressure, especially in the beginning when we didn't have a lot of information, just knowing the basic prognosis. And even after we learned your real prognosis after the immunotherapy, there is still that okay, we're good now.
yeah, because when the diagnosis come in that it was cancer, we were like, oh shit.
Well, initially they're like a couple rounds of chemo, zip, zip, zip. You're gonna lose all your hair. You're gonna get real skinny, and we'll fight it and we'll be done.
Yep. And we were still like, oh shit. Okay, so what do we got to do? And then it seemed like it was kind of like this is kind of the run of the mill thing. But then when they and I remember telling her, at least it's not in my brain
Yeah,
because that we knew somebody who had tumors in the brain, and when they got that removed, that guy was a completely different person.
yeah.
And so that kind of bothered me. But then laying in the ER, and the little ER doctor come in and said, "Hey, I got some bad news, and there's a tumor in your brain." And I looked at her and said,
Yeah.
well, fuck. All right, damn.
I mean,
That was
there's not much more you can say, and I instantly went to, oh, this just got worse.
yeah. So
This isn't what they. Well, and even then they thought we didn't have the biopsy back or anything, so we still were on the thought, and even the neurosurgeon said, if this is lymphoma, we should be able to zap it and it'll go away. And lymphoma tumors in the brain react really well to X, Y, and Z.
hmm
And typically we can treat it and it won't come back and you won't need much and we'll just take it and it'll be fine. Um, and then we found out it wasn't lymphoma. And that kind of changed one, it changed the diagnosis, it changed outcomes, it changed prognosis, it changed treatment plan, it changed
so
everything in a matter of less than 24 hours.
and after when we had to fill out paperwork for the brain surgery, we talked about this that you had to fill out the living will,
Mm-hmm.
the
We did
all that
power of
stuff,
attorneys, we did all of this stuff.
and that's where everything in our mindset shifted. Like, okay, so this after the brain surgery, everything went well, thank goodness, and we're talking to Dr. A, our oncologist, we'll call him Dr. A. He kind of gave us 6 years, and as kind of like the average, but you could be above average, and so it's like, okay, so given that time frame, even that was a year ago, and my body's reacted really well to the immunotherapy, and today we are 4 weeks in of surveillance mode, like we did my last um, immunotherapy infusion 4 weeks ago this week. So that's
It's
great.
been longer than that. Your last infusion was December 27th.
Okay, so we're 5 weeks. 5 weeks. I'm sorry.
And so we'll have scans right at that
3 month.
3 month mark.
Yep.
In March. And that gives us a whole lot better idea with how his body is protecting itself, and if there is more cancer, we'll learn at that scan. And I just want to say, and I feel like this. Initially, when the radiation happened, and I know
I did not get any spidey senses.
well
I was trying to get a mutation.
Well, you're mutated, all right, but
to become a Spider-Man.
And I don't want this to sound crass or to sound cold or to sound rude or unblessed or anything like that. But when our whole world got rocked, and we had lots of people, wishing good and praying and helping us and, making sure that we were taken care of, the comment I hated was, way to fight, or you're fighting it, you're doing great. And I'm like, we haven't started to fight yet. And I know that that is met with all kinds of positivity, and people mean well, but for me, on this side of it, I was like, well, that's great, but we haven't done anything. And then the brain surgery, and it was, congratulations, the brain tumor's gone. Okay, we still haven't addressed his body yet. Hold on a minute.
And there's days where, you're just exhausted, flat out exhausted, and you haven't done anything but get out of bed. You thank the Lord that you woke up, you moved yourself downstairs, made a pot of coffee, and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And somebody would text me, "Hey, how you feeling today?" And I would send back a meme from the movie 300, where the Spartans are taking on Xerxes and the army, and I'm like, this is how I feel today.
No, and I
And
think
that painted a huge picture. Or there was one that I sent a lot to that was a like a gladiator warrior in the Colosseum fighting 3 lions. Like, I was in the, like, this is how I feel today as I think about not only about what I'm doing, but what my insides are doing, because they're doing all the work. They're the ones that are fighting, and I'm just living. I'm trying to breathe. I'm trying to stay coherent and give my thanks and my Eucharisto.
Yeah.
My new word for the week.
I think that people really, really meant well, and I appreciate their well meaning, and I understand. But watching you go through pain, watching our kids in pain, watching I guess I can say, the life that we had planned, because we've talked about, like, when we're old and we have grandchildren and all of that, and to think, oh, fuck,
It
he's
might
not
not
gonna
happen.
happen. He might not be here. I mean, Peyton's graduation, I was like, okay, at least he made it. Taking her to college, and they're like, in 4 years she's gonna walk across this stage, and all I could think was, will you be here?
Yep.
So while everybody was like, yay, you're fighting and winning, those are the thoughts in my head, because we're not removed from this, and there's a very high likelihood that we will not ever be removed from this.
Yes.
This will always be the fear every 3 months, every 6 months, for the rest of your life, pretty much, that we're going to have to watch for this. And it can come back at any time, and it can be ugly, it could be easy. We can fight it 20 times and win. The next fight we have, we might not win.
Because, like, the conclusion that I came up with, and it could be completely off my rocker, which is not uncommon, but it is skin cancer, and your body, your skin regenerates every day. So 5, 6 years down the line, as it's regenerating, the cells will migrate, and they may decide to have a party, and then that's where we're going back to treatments. So
the thing we hold on to is that so many times we hear that you will die with cancer, but you might not die from cancer. And I really hope that's true.
Yep.
But the honest part of this is you will always have cancer.
Yes, it's not like I'm in remission. That's not a word that is.
You're the closest right now as you can get to remission.
Yep, that is not a word that, or a word in the vocabulary of melanoma, and that's because you're always living with it. Like if I go out and get sunburnt really bad, that could throw me into a whole another
we don't know
tizzy.
what's going to happen. I know that I joined a lot of Facebook groups about caregiving and melanoma, metastatic melanoma people, and support groups, and because nobody in our families had this before, so it's completely uncharted territory for us, and those people have been super lovely to explain treatments or how this treatment affected their body, or and saying, hey, I don't know, but this is what happened to me. I don't know how what it will do for you, or hey, please don't give up the thoughts and the prayers and the good hopes. I've been NED, no evidence of disease, or some people say no evidence of active disease, for 10 years. Somebody's like, I had metastatic melanoma 40 years ago and I'm still here. So there are success stories, but these people still go get scanned on a consistent basis, knowing that that day's scan could change their whole life again.
Right. So we are currently non-detected. It's not remission. There's a difference. Um, and I always had trouble with someone telling me, "Man, you're really kicking cancer's ass," and I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like it.
In a lot of ways, cancer is kicking your ass.
But then when I turned it around and said, "What are my insides doing?" I mean, so immunotherapy throws your immune system into overdrive. Like if you just think about your immune system drinking Red Bulls or Monsters and getting all wired, and they don't stop. Like they go on for 3 months, just wide open, and
Well, they go on wide open as long as you're on immunotherapy.
and so your body can't keep up with that. And we found that my thyroid was one thing that can't keep up.
Yeah, that went right away.
So my thyroid was like, oh, I'm tired, I'm done. So we started having higher thyroid numbers, which, yeah, okay, you know, what's the big deal with that? Well, what it did for me was it made my sugar numbers go up.
And it made you exhausted.
Completely wore out, like exhausted. Like, I mean, it's.
So you were already tired from cancer.
Yep.
You were already tired from immunotherapy, and now your thyroid, which helps to control your sleep cycles and your fatigue and your awakeness and
Yep.
your energy levels and your metabolism and all that, it said, "Peace
Yep.
out.
Yep.
I'm out."
So being type 2 diabetic, it made my sugar numbers go up. So where I was checking in it all the time, and my doctor's family doctor was fantastic. Got me the Freestyle Libre scanner,
Yeah. That was
and
a life changer.
that did so much because I didn't have to prick my fingers. And anybody that's type 2 diabetic, you prick your fingers, and them things get sore.
And because of this, like, we also decided with everything going on, and I think this is also one of those reasons she requested this and prescribed this for you, was if he felt horrible, I could use the scanner and just scan his device.
Yep.
And then I could know where his numbers were. If he was really fatigued and he couldn't get out of bed and his body hurt, the last thing you want is to be poked and prodded. So it allowed all of us, we could just scan him. It was just an easier process.
So during the beginning of this, I was checking my sugar almost 6 times a day
Well, because for the
because
first 6 weeks you were on steroids.
I was on
6 to 8
steroids,
weeks, maybe longer.
which would up my sugar. So then I had to figure out what I was going to eat to keep that number there and not take me all the way up, and what not to, so I didn't avoid eating because of high numbers, and then I bottom out, or I run into other issues because I'm not eating.
Yeah.
So that was a delicate balance, and once she found out that I was doing it 6 times a day and my fingers were, I mean, they were sore to touch, all of them. I would do a different finger each time, and they were all getting tender. And she got me that scanner, and I'm telling you what, I love it. I do. I'm still on it, and I'm more apt to check my sugar multiple times a day with the scanner than I am trying to prick my finger.
Yeah. And it's something that any of us can do.
Yeah.
Anybody can come in here, grab his little scanning machine, and check his blood sugar. So that was nice. So in case the kids were here with you and there was a problem, they could scan you real fast without being nervous about pricking your fingers. I mean, luckily we didn't have any of those issues, but if we had,
Yep.
they could have handled it.
And then I had the insulin and stuff like that in case I was way too high and I was about to go into shock or something. And because of the steroids upping my sugar, the thyroid medicine or the thyroid, I would notice that I was getting higher numbers from because my basic medicine didn't change. But then when the thyroid started messing up, my numbers would go up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, my thyroid's starting to go up. And she'd say, what do you mean? And after a while, we started seeing that trend.
Right.
And just a month ago,
I've
not,
learned a lot more about lab values than I ever wanted to know.
yeah, just my last doctor visit a couple weeks ago, um, she said, your thyroid number's up. And I said, I know. And she's like, what? I said, yeah, because my sugar numbers have been up on an average.
Yeah, we had all kinds of
And she
problems with
was
your
like,
medicine.
really? And I said, yes. Anytime my thyroid goes up, my sugar numbers go up. But then, I'm on a thyroid medicine, and it'll come back down. It just kind of roller coasters up and down.
Yeah, I mean
It
sometimes
gradually
they
goes up.
adjust the thyroid medicine. So you know, we we've said it many, many, many times that cancer changes everything. So there we go. One system, thyroid, it clocked out on us. Um,
I do have to throw this in there because I had to laugh at my doctor, Dr. A, when we were doing our initial visit and all this, and he said one of the side effects of this, we've seen it a lot, is you can become diabetic. And I chuckled at him and I said, I got you. I'm already diabetic. He said, type 1? I said, no. He goes, you could be. And I was like, oh
yeah,
shit. And he goes, ha, got you.
right. So okay, so we're gonna back up just a minute. It's not really backtracking, but we're gonna back up just a minute and we're gonna talk about all the things that this caused to change. Um, we've said cancer changes everything. So we've talked about finances, we've talked about some emotion. It changed his whole body chemistry. You know, the first thing, were aches and pains. That was the first thing. And aches and pains he would get maybe 3 to 4 days after every immunotherapy. Um, and initially in the first 2 rounds, he had two medicines being given. After that second one, he walked down the stairs like he was 80 years old, crippled. He was hunched over. He sat in a chair with his knees almost pulled up to his body, and you can just tell moving hurt.
And I'm
Moving
and I'm not a
just
little fella.
moving just hurt. He had this look on his face. He had this look of his skin, like he just looked pale. It looked like everything just hurt. And so I did the thing I was supposed to do, and I called the doctor. Anytime something lasts for more than 24 hours, we had to call the doctor on a headache, a and let me just say, Lee, through the whole tumor, Lee swore to gosh this was a sinus infection, and I still say this to him. He's like, I have a headache. Where's your headache? Well, it's back here on the back of his head. I think it's sinus. You do not have sinuses in the back of your head, y'all. They're behind your eyes, behind your nose. That's where your sinuses are. We fight about this every time.
I'm a guy, and I grew up in a cornfield around farms, and uh, we don't you don't talk about feelings. You don't talk about illnesses.
Well, and
You talk about the weather. You talk about
the
football.
crops, you talk
Yeah,
about that kind of stuff.
fishing. You talk about everything but feelings and aches and pains.
And him and I had to have some real heart to hearts. Like, okay, listen, here's the deal.
And that was another thing that changed a lot was communication. So since we've been married, there's a lot of things that we don't, I don't complain about.
I
And if
complain plenty.
and if I say something, then it comes off that I'm complaining, and so I just rather not say anything.
Well, you also have a way to say something, and you've learned to preface with, "This is going to come out wrong," because that really helps. Because otherwise, you can say things they sound really mean if you only listen to the words.
Yeah. So I've had to start with that
Yeah.
because I have no filter. Like it's pretty much not all the way gone, but there's some big holes in it.
Well, you're
So
just a guy,
so
and your
now,
sweet talk isn't always sweet. That's all I got.
yeah, and I mean, to say the least, my give a shit's gone.
It's been gone for years.
Um, but it's been really bad now because I'm like, you know what,
Eh.
whatever. And then the wife says, time out. He had a brain tumor. He had surgery.
Well, and you're
That's the warning that people get whenever they come over for
well,
dinner or
he's a
we get
guy's
together.
guy, and he's been a dad for 23 years, and he still struggles with how to talk to the girls because the girls are girls and the girls aren't guys. So we always have to have this sensitivity discussion. And please understand they are more sensitive than you, and you have to appreciate their sensitivity without being too harsh. And you have to, so I mean, it's a lot of learning to do that. So part of that for him with this was learning to tell me when his body didn't feel well so I could call the doctor and say, okay, we have an issue, and I don't know if he just doesn't feel good today or if this is something caused by the treatment. And so his nurses have been fabulous. And they're like, no question is too silly, no question is stupid. Can you just, always send us a message, always call us, and we will get back to you like right away. So these aches and pains he had made it so he couldn't get out of bed. So that was the first call.
Well, I could get out of
We
bed, but there was days where I'd walk down the stairs
and
and she'd
that was
say,
all you could do.
she would look at me and she goes, "You all right?" And I said, "I feel like shit." And she goes, "Turn around and go right back upstairs."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Let me get some coffee first." Coffee became a lifeline. That
Or you sat down in the chair because you had to know that
I
you could
was
get out of the bed.
I was forcing myself to be present when my presence was not needed.
Yeah.
Or wanted.
Well, and
Because I would.
I think you tried to be part of everything because you were scared, and you're never going to say you were scared, but you were kind of, this is a big life changing thing, and all we wanted was for you to be comfortable and not be,
It was.
not hurt,
It was
not to be
more
uncomfortable.
more of putting on the front of I'm okay. I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay. Look, I'm here for the kids, for the wife. I'm here.
He didn't fool
And
any of us, just
and
saying.
she would just look at me and go, "You look like shit. Go back to bed." I'm like, "Let me make some coffee." And I'd get a cup of coffee and I'd go right back upstairs. And whether I drank the whole cup, I don't know. Because if I laid down, I laid down. If I watched some TV, like sat up in the chair and upstairs in the room and watched a video on my phone or whatever, and then knocked out. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, after that second one, like I said, your knees hurt really bad. Your muscles hurt.
And that was the
Your
funny
body
thing.
ached.
The majority of the aches and pains that I had was in the my knees, mainly in the back of my knees.
Mm-hmm.
Now it could have been just the hamstrings because they were tight and not being used. It
It
could
could
have
have
been
been
arthritis. Like they sent me to the
This is what I was going to say.
Dr. W. And
We had to go to a rheumatologist,
yeah, Dr.
and
W.
ironically, this rheumatologist, number one, she worked with our oncologist. She did some of her residency with him. So when we had to call and schedule that appointment, we said, well, can it be with anybody in her office? And our nurse was like, no, it needs to be with her.
Yeah,
They used to work together and she trained under him. So she knows what he's looking for, and they just have a really good rapport. Um, and we're like, okay. Ironically, her grandparents are from Piqua,
yeah. I think we brought that up, and
so
we're from Sydney. So
that's super cool. Um,
and that same week that we met with her,
the pharmacist.
no, there was a I was a so I'm a judge with the South Carolina Barbecue Association, and me and my buddy were um, judges at this one competition in Chester, and I got talking to one of the other judges, young fella, and we got talking about the soccer because we had just went to an Atlanta United game and like a few weeks prior, and he had just went the night before to a Charlotte game, and so we were talking about that, and then we got talking some other stuff, and then come to find out, his girlfriend is from Fletcher, Ohio. So anybody that's around that area, where I used to live, out just south of Sydney, you went through Fletcher to get to Piqua.
Yeah. Well, and your pharmacist, I feel like, was from Dayton or Piqua.
Yeah,
One of the oncologists or pharmacy oncologist people. But anyway, back to rheumatology.
yeah.
Um,
Interesting little ties that we've made through cancer.
so we went to the rheumatologist who ran, because your ANA came back positive, and that's a positive test for autoimmune deficiencies. So, which they said, we don't know if this is real and this has always been in your body and the treatment has awoken it, or if this is like a pseudo kind of issue that the immunotherapy has caused it.
Which they were. So I didn't understand any of that, and I still don't. But what they were looking for was lupus
Lupus and rheumatoid arthritis.
and
Those are the big
rheumatoid
ones.
arthritis.
And
So
I
that part I understood.
I did the things I knew to do. I called the aunts. I called an aunt on each side and said, "Is there any of this in his family history?" And they said, "Nope." Um,
Because she was asking me about it, and
again, guys
I
don't
said,
talk.
honey, if it didn't have to do with rain, farming, or sports, maybe fishing, we didn't talk about it.
So I'm sure the aunts, I, none of them were like, I'm telling you that, but I'm sure it kind of came just out of the blue. Hey, I have a question. But during that, we were trying to figure out how to help your legs. And your
Yeah.
cousin said, try Claritin. That seems to work for some with bone pain in cancer patients. We did. People were like, try a heating pad. We did. We tried an electric blanket. We tried ice. We tried everything, and we could not get this pain to knock out.
And
And
it was a weird kind of, it was like an achy, but then it wouldn't last but a couple days, and then it'd be gone. Then it would come back a couple days later,
yeah,
and
there was no system to your flare up.
no. And there was times where I just had to lay on the floor and stretch out and just be,
But you could
which
tell because he would start rubbing his legs,
yeah.
and you don't typically do that unless something's bothering you, and you sit there and you make this face and you'd rub your legs, and we had to find a solution. So when we called the doctor, that was the first time he went after the initial steroids. They put him on steroids. They're like, we have to break. They considered it a toxicity
So
because
so
of the grade of pain combined with you had a rash all over your body.
so basically, this steroid was forcing the brakes on the immune system.
Yes.
So it was basically like pulling the emergency brake on the car rolling downhill with no brakes.
So we
That
had
was
to.
so it pulled it, and then when we went back to, and that's my sugar, I had to really watch that because I
Mhm.
was on a known steroid, and I mean I wasn't eating very much. I dropped 20 pounds between diagnosis, well, time we went to the ER in July, was it end of July,
Yeah, it was right
and
after your brain surgery.
and
That's
probably
the smallest you've ever been in your life. Well,
yeah,
since I in our marriage.
so I was probably starting around 250, 255, and I had already dropped some weight prior to that, and we got to, so I had to really watch what I was doing and not lose too much weight while we're doing it, and keeping my sugar numbers under control. And one thing that he mentioned is cancer cells thrive off sugar. So a high sugar diet, you're feeding your cancer cells, even though they're not present, but they're more apt to find each other and throw a party and cause a big problem, which is, you know,
What we have.
what I
Um,
had. I had two
so,
parties, two ragers,
so we
big keggers.
we ended up with rheumatology. I'm trying to stay on focus here, and you're struggling with me. Um, Rheumatology to fix the knee. So there's our first specialist. And we're like, oh, okay. So we went and we saw her. She did all the blood work. She was checking for different proteins that would say, yes, you have lupus or yes, you have rheumatoid arthritis. And luckily, neither one of those proteins were found. So it was, we're going to continue monitoring you every 3 months.
Imagine that. All my tests left more questions.
Exactly. So,
But they were good because she's seen that kind of stuff before.
right. And
So
that's
she
why
was
we
like,
went to her because she has a history with
yeah.
oncology as well, where somebody else could have thrown
So
a
so she
whole
was
nother
like,
issue.
I've seen this before. You're not showing anything. So it leads us more on the side of it's part of your body's reaction to immunotherapy.
Yeah. So then,
We cut
because the
we
sugar stayed up,
yeah,
um,
and the thyroid stayed up.
and the thyroid kind of, we had to get the thyroid checked. We went to endocrinology. So endocrinology checked, all the blood work, and they said actually your sugar numbers with everything you've been through, excuse me, with everything you've gone through, they're not bad. It looks like you're handling it well. You're adjusting when need be. Your thyroid numbers look okay. I think we have the right dose for you finally. And she was the first one to cut us. And I was grateful because we were, again, like, quicksand of sorts. Every appointment led to one or two different people that we had to see, and it just becomes overwhelming. You're like, oh my gosh, so my cancer is responding good, but now this system's out of whack. Oh, my cancer's good and this system's in control. Now that system's out of whack.
And
We
that's
played whack-a-mole for 6 months.
and that's one of the, I don't want to say problems with immunotherapy, but that's why a lot of patients have trouble with it, is
Yeah.
because it throws their system out of whack. We met one lady who has, she's like what, 3 months behind me,
I think she's 3 months behind us in
and
this.
so she was asking questions and whatnot, and she's had some gastric problems,
Yeah, she's
which I
on
didn't have.
gastro, I feel like.
Yeah, I didn't have any
Or
problems.
more heavily gastro.
I didn't have any problems with my stomach.
That was so the biggest complaint on all of the Facebook groups, for people having immunotherapy. They're like, by day 3 to 5, watch for diarrhea, watch for vomiting, because it's happening to so many people. So many of the people are like, I did great except for this. And when I'm like diarrhea, like I can deal with a lot of stuff, but they're like 3 to 5 to 6 days of diarrhea. I'm like, oh no, thank you.
So one of the things that may have helped us was because I was diabetic and because I didn't feel like eating.
Maybe that's why
we
you
were
weren't
watching we were really watching our sugar intake, as far as, like no starches. White starches flared up my inflammation, and so I couldn't do white starches. So we started doing kind of keto, and I say that loosely because we were doing. I was talking with a guy on YouTube, a friend of mine in Vegas, and he was he had went through colon cancer, and I think it was colon cancer.
I don't remember because I really wasn't
It was
involved.
it might have been prostate cancer. One of
Because
them.
colon cancer is really
One of them, and
bad prognosis.
he's type 2 diabetic because of the cancer. Like he turned into diabetes after the cancer. So he's really trying to get his numbers under control, get um, get his blood sugars, where they should be, and get off medicine. And he's doing it with keto. Very great thing. So we got to talking, and he's been very very inspiring. And so when the doc said, hey, you know, cancer feeds on sugar. All right, no cookies or limited cookies. Okay, less than what I would have with type 2 diabetes.
Right.
So instead of 4 cookies, you might get
Well, you only
two
eat things
halves.
in pair.
Yeah, so you might get 2 halves of a cookie. So, instead of a Reese cup, a pack of Reese cups, you get one or half of one, and the wife gets the other. One of
So
my downfalls was zebra cakes. So I would have one, and I would give the other one to the dogs. So I'd split it in 2/3 and a third, and the little dog would get the 1/3, and the lab would get the 2/3. And that justified because that was the only thing that I ate all day long. Not good, but then where I was going with the keto stuff before I went off track. I haven't had any zebra cakes in about 6 months. Um, but where I was going with that was because of that, we didn't. I mean, our cooking style changed.
well, and you're married to me, and I don't cook, so
I used to cook all the time, and
you got very plain things.
that passion has still not come back.
No.
And I mean, I run a cooking YouTube channel, and
You only cook on Sunday.
and that's the main. I might cook once through the week, and then on Sunday morning,
That's it.
and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, we're doing quick stuff like quesadillas with keto tortillas. I'll get the small street tacos with about 2 pieces of cheese in it, fold it over, boom, done. 2 of those, and that's my lunch.
It's a good thing our kids can cook. So I'm trying to get us
So
back.
so I might not have had the gastro problems that other
Yes,
people are
there you
saying
go.
that they were having because
Because of that.
we offset it with, I mean, lots of cheese. Because keto, when you're first starting out,
All you know is eat cheese. It's safe.
cheese and pepperonis, and we would
Well,
get those keto taco shells,
and you didn't feel like eating most of the
and
time, but
I didn't feel like doing anything.
so so here we've racked up oncology. At one of your oncology appointments, your doctor said, "Did you get your skin checked? Who's your dermatologist?" And your only answer was, "Well, I don't have one, but I bet you know a guy."
Yeah, because he said, well, who's your dermatologist? And I looked at him real funny and kind of gave him a look. He said, you ain't got one. I said, I bet you know a guy. And he starts laughing. He goes,
That's kind of become our
yeah,
thing. So and we talked about how we got with Dr. B and the humility
yeah.
in that full body check.
I'm telling you what, man.
Um,
I have never ever. It was this dude's got like
a
one of those
magnifying glass.
like one of those jewelers like magnifying glass things he sticks up to his eye that has a little light in it so he can check your moles. And I'm telling you what, that guy, he did not leave anything to question.
No, we've seen it all. So we
He
gained
went places my wife hasn't even been.
truth. We we gained dermatology. When it came time for endocrinology, same thing.
And
You
he
bet
didn't
you
even
know a guy.
and he didn't even buy me a coffee.
You're right. I bought you a coffee that day.
Yeah, you did.
I felt I needed one. Um,
You did because you felt bad for me because I was like, he didn't even give me a like.
so we gained endocrinology. We gained rheumatology, and then about the summer, we did a scan. It was probably the summer, or maybe even September. We did a scan, and we're like, okay, how's everything? Well, everything cancer wise looks good, but we're sending you to cardiology. I'm like, what?
Yeah, because
What are you talking about?
so when he brought up that scan versus the scan prior, there the that latest scan had said that the whatever the notes had said there was excess fluid around the heart.
Hmm.
So of course we're like, oh shit. So he goes and looks at the previous
He
scan.
said, "Do you have a cardiologist?" The oncologist says, and Lee said, "Bet you know a guy." And within a week, we were into the cardiologist's office,
Yep.
who I do adore him. He
He's
has a
funny.
great sense of humor. He's very funny. Um,
Because I misspelled his name
okay, you spelled his name really wrong.
really wrong, but I tried to sound it out, and I was waiting until after I saw his name tag to fix it. Because what I do is every doctor's appointment I write down what my weight is, what my A1C is if we do it, what
Your
my
blood pressure.
my
You
blood
write down
pressure.
all
I
the
write
stats.
I write all that stuff down, stuff that I think I need to know. And so we saw him, so I wrote it in his office. Like I wrote, I got this app and I put it in there
And
that
I knew.
my weight was here, and then in the notes I put Doctor B, and I had spelled it out.
Well, no, for Dr. B, you write Dr. B because his name is really hard.
Yeah, 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 okay, okay.
But your cardiologist,
And he,
I knew as soon as so Lee's typing in this stuff, and I'm like, he did not spell that name right. He did not spell that guy's name right. And then Lee says, I keep a record of all of his stuff. He goes, well, let me see them. And without missing a beat, this doctor goes,
oh yeah, Doctor P.
he goes, you called me Dr. Prick? My name doesn't even sound like Prick. I thought we were getting along.
And I said, man, look, I didn't even spell that right. So
No, he didn't. He
I was
misspelled
trying
that.
to spell your name.
And so he goes, and he spelled out his name for Lee to fix it.
Yeah, like and it's on his name tag on his shirt.
But he couldn't get to that and get it typed in before he was wanting to see all these numbers.
So yeah.
So, but with that, we ended up with an echo. We ended up with a cardiac another cardiac non-stress test. Um, and
Which one
now
was the ultrasound?
that was him.
Yeah,
You had
yeah,
an echo.
the echo.
You had an echo.
So that poor lady.
And let
This
me just say, if I knew he was going to respond this way, I would have pulled that nurse aside and had her work with me.
so I don't venture to I don't watch all the doctor shows. So when they said we're gonna send you in to get this echo, I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. I go in there, lady's in there, and she's like, putting these things on. I'm like, all right. She said we're gonna do an ultrasound. And I was like, do what? She said we're gonna do an ultrasound. What you mean? Like in my brain, which is also like
Mush.
scrambled right now. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, an ultrasound. Where we're gonna take a camera, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. She says, what? I said, you're not gonna use that wand, are you? And she said, wand? What are you talking about? I said, the last ultrasound that I've seen was when the wife was pregnant, and the guy pulled out this 2-foot wand with a camera at the end of it that makes every guy that sees that envious and ashamed. So I'm like, where are you? No, whoa. And she goes, oh my gosh, no. She goes, no, no, no. There would be more than just me in here if we were doing that. No, we're not doing that. This is just the one on your chest. I was like,
No,
oh,
afterwards, when he came out, he was so relieved because I kept on, it's not a big deal. They're just going to do an ultrasound. They're just going to, use this little device and kind of see inside your body, like your sound waves. And I don't know how it all works, but it's non invasive, really, babe. And he was so concerned. Like, he had almost made himself sick with this. And I'm like, what is your problem? He's like, I don't like this. I don't like the sound of this one. I'm like, it is the easiest one you've done. You just lay there.
so once,
After he came out and told me, I I thought it was my favorite story. I thought I was gonna die laughing, and that's when I said, Lee, I'm so glad you didn't share with me because I would have told her when you start this, tell him to turn over
yeah,
because he thinks it's like this.
I was not, and so I mean, you guys can probably paint the picture, but when we go to the oncologist and we're talking to Dr. A, and he said, okay, well we're talking to him, and he said, well, your scan came back good. Um, so this excess of fluid, it's normal.
Yeah,
It's not. It's not anything more. You had somebody different read it, and
somebody who had more time. He
yeah,
said
somebody who took more time than the first one or the one before that, and said that it was an excess, but it's really okay.
it's
It's not.
fine.
It's not. It's fine.
Nothing's changed.
And I said, dude, if you would have took my blood pressure, I probably would have passed out. It would have been off the charts.
He's like, what? And he goes, you didn't prepare me for that ultrasound.
And he goes, what? And that's why I said, you did not prepare me for that, mister. And I kind of took a gruff tone, and he was like, what? So then I tell him the story that I thought it was
The
the,
probe
the long wand. And he goes, wait a minute, wait a minute. You thought they were going to check your heart?
through your bum.
And he starts laughing, and then he goes, your bum. And then he starts laughing harder, spins around in his chair like a full
He had to lay his
360,
head down. He had to lay his head down on his desk.
a full 360, leans back, about falls off the stool, and then throws his head onto the desk.
He's like, that's the funniest thing
And he
I've
goes,
heard.
you win the prize for the week. That is the funniest thing I've heard. And I was like, I didn't think it was funny.
And your doctor looked at me, and I was like, I didn't know this was his fear.
Because he was looking like, is this guy for real? And she's like, he was terrified. And then when he came out, it was like this
And he
huge
looked
weight
at me like,
lifted
why
off his.
didn't you tell him? I'm like, he didn't tell me. He thought it was that.
Again, guys, don't talk about stuff like that. We don't talk about our insecurities.
Now, mind you, his daughter had an echo done on her heart, and you never were curious about the why.
No, I didn't. I didn't
You were
connect the
in the
dots.
room.
Even like until right now, I would have never connected those dots.
You were in the room, and she had the same test done. So yeah, so we got a
So
cardiologist.
months later, I still haven't connected those dots.
We have a cardiologist now who we see every 3 months. So, we have to keep it lively. And because we travel not far, I mean, I'm not going to say
About
that,
a 35, 40-minute drive.
yeah, but when you're going, I did our taxes and things, and I added up how many trips we made last year. We made 35 trips to Charlotte last year. So when you're making that many trips, um,
When the ladies at the coffee shop
they know us. And
in the hospital,
you've been here 3 times this week. This coffee's on us.
yeah,
Um, I try now to make all of your appointments on the same day.
yep.
So we're making one trip, but we're there from like 8 to 4. It's a full-time job, 1 day a week at that hospital. But everybody's offices are walking distance, so we get a little walk. We get to try this building. We get to go here. And I think probably the coolest thing with the team, and I've always said that we have the best team, is like when we went to the rheumatologist the last time, we hadn't had the news yet that he was going to go into surveillance mode. And she kind of walked in, she's like, "Congratulations." And we're like, "What do we do?" And she goes, "I saw your scan, so you're going to," he goes, "Oh, wait, you haven't seen oncology yet. I'll save it, but everything looks good." And we go to cardiology. "Hey, I saw you went and saw the rheumatology. Everything looks good. Saw your scans. They look good."
Yep.
"Oh, you haven't gone to oncology yet." "Well, they're good." And everybody knows what the other person's doing. I think the only person out of the loop is your primary care doctor.
Yeah, she was kind of out of the loop, and then so I had to bring her up to speed, and then they have like all the medicines, and they're like, what are you taking now?"
Yeah.
I'm like, well, these are the ones that you have prescribed, and I need refills of all those. Well, what about these ones? I said, those are already taken care of from cardio and oncology. She's like, all right, cool. I won't touch those.
But I think, again, it goes back to you don't prepare for this. Um, we don't know what's going to happen. Oh, the other thing you have skin. Can we talk about this?
Yeah, I'm still so I'd say about halfway through treatment, um, through immunotherapy. I started noticing some splotchiness on my arm, and I was like, "What the hell?" And by splotchiness, I mean like white spots. And so I was kind of watching it, and I was kind of wearing more long sleeve shirts, and which isn't uncommon, but it just started getting a little more self conscious about it. And what I ended up asking the doctor, the Doctor A, the oncologist, and I said, I'm noticing this, and I don't know whether it's good or bad. And he said it's actually, what do they call it?
Vitiligo.
Yeah, and
Vitiligo. It's basically his skin is bleaching.
yes,
It's splotchy and it's bleaching. So he's
and
losing all of the pigment in
majority of
his
the pigment on my
arms and his neck.
yep
That's the only place we've noticed it is your arms, neck, shoulders.
yep
But
the
it's not like
places that
your,
I would normally get a sunburn.
yeah, it's not your
So like
stomach, your back, your legs,
the
your
last
face.
sunburn that I had was I was in a sleeveless shirt, so my shoulders, my arms, my hands, um, my neck. That's where I'm seeing it, and and I was telling him, I was like, I don't know about this, man. Is it good? He said, oh, that's great. I was like, what you talking about, Willis? He said, no, no. He goes, that's good, that's good. That means
Your
that
body's responding.
your body's responding and likes what it's doing. And I was like,
It's
yeah.
responding to the immunotherapy.
And I looked at him and said, I haven't called BS on a lot of stuff you said, but I'm starting to think. And he said, no. He goes, that's all right. It's good. So
and
then one of
and
the other,
everybody sees him, and all the doctors are like, okay, I noticed this. That's good. It means it's a good response.
yeah. So, the every oncologist we saw had said that. Other nurses that had came in to talk to us before we left, the financial lady, all that stuff that came into the office to talk to us, had saw it and they're like, "That's great." Some of the we've had the two or three times now he's had a student with him, and because I'm one of this good success stories, I would think that he wants them around to see it's not all doom and gloom.
Well, he's
And
gonna take those
he's
students through everything, but I think it is
he's
good.
proud of what happened to us
Yeah,
and
he's happy.
how we've done it and dealt with it. And he even asked if there was somebody that was really freaking out if they could call us, and we're like, yeah, do it, whatever. So like the last student he said, hey, check that out and tell me what you think. So I mean, he gives me kind of like a look over and
You could tell
whatever,
he
and
was nervous.
he was nervous, and I think I don't know what year it was in, but anyway, so he gave me the look over and he said, well, it looks like the infiltrate.
The vitiligo. I cannot say the word. I can hear it 100 times. I still will not get it.
Yep, I don't know, I can't pronounce it, but anyway,
Vitiligo.
but he says it looks like this, where the skin's bleaching, and he says, and he goes, okay, is that good or bad? And he said, well, it means that the body's reacting to positively to the treatment, so it's a good thing. And I looked at him, I said, all right, you got this one. So
So
I'm still kind of. I mean, it's not as. I mean, it's still there. It's still.
it
It's not as.
I think we've just become accustomed to it, so it's not such a
Yeah.
shock. And I've told you, I don't care if you lose all the melanin in
Yeah.
your body. If it keeps you
The
here,
the hard part for me was that it's visible.
yeah.
Like cancer is. I mean, it's melanoma's inside its skin. It's.
Well, you were
But
lucky
it's.
you didn't have any outside tumors
But aside from the scar on my
because
head,
that would have bothered you.
yes. Aside from the scar on my head, you wouldn't know.
Okay,
And
let me do tell you about the scar.
well, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
And then to see this, it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
oh shit. Like, yeah, it's real, but now it's visibly real. And I had a hard time with it for a while.
Mhm.
And Berica was our youngest was like, Dad, wear that as a badge of honor, And I was like, okay. So I still wear my long sleeve shirts, which is not out of the normal.
No, it's what you're supposed to do.
And I might pull my sleeves up now or roll my sleeves up and not be as um, conscious of it. Uh, I don't. My hands got some spots on it, but I don't keep it in my pocket like I did, or try to cover it up. I'm just so that's a ongoing process of
Acceptance, maybe.
yeah of acceptance, and when you're because you're like when you're out and about and somebody sees and stares because I'm I'm kind of a pale guy anyway, and then you get spots of bleachiness, you're like kind of glow a little bit. so that is a thing that we noticed, and fortunately, I'm not. I don't know. I'm
Well,
getting more okay with it.
well, because it means something good is happening.
Yeah.
So that's good. So Lee, you mentioned your scar,
Yeah, the scar on
and
my head.
so funny thing that happened, and nobody prepared me for this. Nobody prepared you for this. You didn't quite care. So Lee always wears a hat, always.
Oh yeah.
And so after we had 3 doses of radiation, and they were like, you could lose your hair, but you're probably not going to. The radiation was only 3 days, la 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 la, whatever. So we go into surgery, and they do this scar, and they just shave basically a strip by your ear across the top of your head.
Because the radiation went millimeters. Like the mask that I wore, or helmet, whatever you want to call it, the radiation mask, it had a cutout where the tumor was,
Right.
and it went like millimeters bigger than the tumor. So it was a concentrated area.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to shave that part for the incision, or
They just shaved. They just shaved for the incision initially.
yeah, the incision.
So we get him home after the surgery. The incision looks great. Everything looks good. His incision starts. It's healing and his hair's growing back. He has like a whole. That part of his hair is all gray. He has one stripe of gray. Well, about October, I was looking at his head and I'm like, what the heck is that? And little by little, he started going bald in a completely circle, like just a circle. And it went from there's hair to it's thinning to this spot now is like the size of a baseball and it's soft as a baby's butt and there's no hair to be found. And I'm like, Lee, you've lost your hair. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you have a whole circle. I'm like, oh my gosh, it lines up with where your radiation was.
Mm-hmm.
So it took from August to like October for you to lose your hair. And
But just in that spot,
just in that
and we're
spot,
talking,
it was like the size of a baseball. It got to be about this big around.
yeah,
But
like the size of one of
it's not,
those little baby oranges.
it was a little bigger than that.
Yeah. So I mean, it was just a small spot, and
But it
nobody
wasn't
knows.
like what you see in the movies.
Yeah.
And maybe for some people, when they lose their hair to chemotherapy or things, maybe it is exactly like what they see in the movies where clumps start falling
Yeah.
out. For him, he went to bed one day and he had hair, and he woke up and there was no hair, but there was also no hair on your pillow or in your clothing or in your hat or in the shower. The hair like
Just
disintegrated.
disappeared.
There was no anything, and I'm like, this is the oddest thing.
The
So
cuties. One of those little oranges, the cuties. It's
it,
about that size.
it was about that size. But it became I watched it every day just to see what else was going to happen, because he laid on the pillow every night. I came up and I looked, and there was not a stray hair on his pillow. And I'm like, where the hell did his hair go? And it
It grew back.
it grew back. So
Yeah.
now we just have a little bit of a faint kind of gray
Yeah.
stripe, which is kind of cool. I mean, you're
Yeah.
kind of like Rogue, but different.
Ooh.
See, look at me. I
A
pay
little
attention.
X-Men thing. There we
Yeah,
go.
I
There we
pay
go.
attention. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
yeah, so that spot grew back, and it all looks uniform again. It's not like that grew back in a different color, did it? No,
no.
no.
And that actually, because I had to go. Basically, I wasn't allowed to wear a ball cap,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, guys, we don't keep our ball caps completely clean. We
Yeah,
wear them until
they're
they
gross.
smell bad, and then you wash them. So all my ball caps needed to be basically sterilized, and they said don't wear them. Wear bucket hats
Because
because they're
they didn't want any pressure on
yeah
your.
because they don't put any pressure on there, and they just kind of sit on top. So we got some bucket hats, and but I couldn't wear them all day like I would a ball cap. So um, in this last year is probably the most I've not been in a ball cap since I was probably 12,
I'm
15.
like, you've worn one since we've been together, and that's 23 years.
Yeah. So since I was 12 or 15, I've worn ball caps every day,
And
majority of the time.
and he would take the ball cap off. Like I've seen him multiple times without a ball cap. But our kids' friends, our friends,
Your sister.
my family, for years they only saw him in a hat.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things they were
It
like,
was after
oh my
surgery.
gosh, this is the longest we've ever seen him without a hat.
Yep. First time they came in after surgery, they were like, kind of looking at
He's
me
not
funny,
wearing a
like
ball cap.
he doesn't have a hat on. What's going on? He's got a whole head.
Yeah,
It's damaged, but it's a whole head.
it's a whole head. But yeah, so I mean, those are all little things and big things that have changed because of cancer. Like, we know that your thyroid probably will never come back,
No.
its use will never come back. Will we always see rheumatology? We will likely see them, and it might scale back to maybe once a year.
Yep.
Or if we have a problem, will we always see cardiology? Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to see them every 6 months or so,
Yeah.
every 3 to 6 months,
The
based on how you do.
the rheumatology said that would scale back to 6 months or even a year. Depending on how scans go.
Your endocrinology, we're basically done with her until we need her.
Yeah.
Dermatology, you're probably going to see him. I think we see him every 3 months, and we likely will see him every
It's
3 to 6 months,
it's going to be
depending
every
on.
time we see the oncologist
Yeah, every
because
time we
they're
see.
same floor,
Same office. We
same
pass.
office.
We
Yeah.
pass his office to get to oncology.
So when
So
when Dr. A was like, when I said, hey, I think you know a guy.
he just went out his door
Yeah.
basically and down the hallway.
So basically, it cost him lunch for
In a
him to come
little,
over
and it's
and
like in a secluded pod.
yeah.
They share the same waiting room.
So
So,
it was like he just owes him lunch to come over here and take a look at me.
and I think in this sense we were lucky because there's a lot of other systems, like this could have affected your lungs, it could have affected your stomach, it could have, it did something with your spleen and your liver, and your liver enzymes have been up and down and in and out, and
Yep.
so is there a potential that later that could have be affected as well? Maybe. And I remember having this conversation with Dr. A about everything looks good, so I don't want to keep pushing him into toxicity and then risk, if we need to use this again, that his body won't respond.
Right. And after the steroid that slowed everything down, basically pumped the brakes, slowed everything down. The next scan was, or the next time for treatment, he switched it
To
to
one
just one
medicine.
medicine
Mm-hmm.
instead of two. I think it was Nevo,
See, I get them confused, and I would have to look on your records. I know
but
what you started with, and I know we tried to switch your dose the second time, and the third time we went to one
so
dose,
we went to the
to one
one
medicine.
medicine, and that's what we stayed on through the rest of treatment.
Yeah.
And
And
I didn't have any problems. I
and
mean,
it sounds like that is kind of common. Our,
yeah,
our friend who's going through this, same thing happened. She hit a toxicity level, and they switched it to one drug.
right.
Um,
And
so because it is truly like it's a fine line. Like, do we keep pumping? If he thought you would get a better response with two drugs, you would have said, "Give me both of them, and I'll deal with this."
yep.
But he's like, "I don't think we need to do that. So let's not push your body past that point."
Because I was always looking at, if that's what you tell me to do, I trust you. I will deal with the
Discomfort and
the
pain,
aches, the
and
pains, the discomfort, because if it'll get me an extra year or two in the long run, that's what I want.
I'll do what you tell me to do.
And now we're in surveillance mode,
Yeah,
and it's it's nerve wracking. It really is.
it is.
On
Maybe
my
that's what we should talk about next time, is what surveillance mode means
yeah
and how it makes us feel.
yeah because our daughters, um, they're great, and they want to. We've always treated or celebrated with sweets, and
We
whenever
celebrate with food, period.
with
It seems
food,
to be,
and
it's what you think of whenever you have a celebratory. It's happy birthday, here's some sweets,
yeah,
here's cake. It's a wedding, cake. Here's an anniversary,
congratulations,
cake. Here's
congratulations,
cake,
you made it through Monday.
cake.
Like, you know, mom had a hard day. Well, here's ice cream for dinner. Like,
Hey,
it's which I go back and forth, and I want just a little bit of it, but not a whole lot because I know it'll throw my sugar off. Well, now it's not just the the caution around the diabetes; it's the caution around feeding cancer,
Yeah.
and that is
But,
a struggle.
and we other people have taken it as far as, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Um, but I would need a lot of support to do this, and that's just me being honest. A lot of people have going to not necessarily keto, but more paleo and grass fed
Yeah,
and
doing more of the or
super
not
healthy
organic,
whole
but
food
um,
kind of diet or Mediterranean diets or
Mediterranean's a real good one.
but a lot of people have just really went on the anti-inflammatory diet for this
Yep.
to kind of help with some of the other stuff. And while I think that's all a great idea, one, I don't feel like I have the skill. I don't have the knowledge. There's so many diets out there, and when I asked this very question, it was
Do
you don't
whatever.
need to follow anything specific.
Yep.
Um, but I would just need a lot of support to do that. And
So
with
by
our lifestyles, it felt like I don't know how to do this. Um,
so with what I was saying with the keto is basically we're cutting out the processed and the as much carbohydrates and white starches as possible.
and we're trying to do it on a budget because the
Which
income levels have dropped significantly,
yes.
and all the food that I'm not going to say should have, but if we are going to follow these plans for our family, it would be a significant raise in our grocery bill.
Yes. So I mean we'll do more like
We do more
chicken,
meat and
meat,
meat and cheese.
pork
We do meat and cheese.
and cheese. Um, and then we do dabble in the zero carb tortillas, the keto tortillas, the
Your
keto
noodles,
bread.
your stinky noodles that
Yep,
your cousin put you on.
yep. So I
Um,
mean, and so I'm trying to do that, and then I still,
we try to make substitutions when we can make them,
but
when it has to financially make sense
yep.
because as much as I would love to be all organic and grass fed and whatever, mm-hmm, our money tree is like every other plant in my yard, it's dead. And so we can't only think about the best diet. We
Right.
also have to keep the lights on and
So
keep
we're
everything
doing
else going.
we're doing a lot more vegetables.
Well, and we both
Fruits
eat a whole lot less. We're
fruits
like
are
one
more
meal people
fruits
anymore.
are more berries
Mhm.
because everything else is higher in sugar. Um, Mama got she was gifted a ice cream machine,
I was.
and so she's been making
I haven't made any for a
sugar
while. I have to
free
make some new ones.
sugar free
Oat milk,
oat
soy
milk,
milk.
whatever. Yeah, ice cream. So that's been a nice sweet treat for when I'm feeling it. Um, but we'll get into all that stuff another
Yeah.
day.
We we have to wrap this up.
Yeah, because we can keep going. Because that's cutting out sugars has been or cutting 95% back on sugars. Okay, okay, 85% back. Jeez and Pete's.
We try.
Yes,
We do try.
we do. Um,
But
I
on the
did.
same breath,
Hold on, give me props. Today we were out to dinner, and I got a side salad instead of fries.
you did. I thought you were gonna say I
And
didn't eat the ice cream at dinner or at dessert when we took our daughter for dessert,
I had a couple bites.
and a couple bites of the cookie, and a cup. Your logic is if I don't eat the whole thing, then it's okay.
It's better than the whole
But
thing,
eating half of two cookies is the same as eating one cookie.
but it wasn't two cookies.
Truth.
Anyway,
All right,
So
y'all. We have to
it's
get out of here.
it's a struggle.
It is. It's always going to be a struggle, babe. Welcome to
Yeah.
being a woman and trying to watch your weight when your spouse
I
likes
will
carbs.
I will say my figure has gone down.
And
Like I mean down like my waist size. I'm probably where I was at in the 8th grade.
yep. And I'm stress eating because you have pushed me to the brink.
Yes.
I'm trying now to not, but for about 8 months,
Yes. So
I was a hot fudge sundae maniac because that is my favorite stress food.
I started when I was diagnosed.
We gotta wrap up, babe.
Oh, sorry. All right, so we will get out of here and we will. I'm gonna write down where we left off.
Okay.
Okay.
In La La Land over here, in a whole mess of misfit.
I had brain surgery. I am confused.
Your doctor said you cannot keep using that anymore.
He said as long as I need to
He
get out.
also said you need to learn to use the vacuum.
Well, on that note.